Fine. No, it's fine.
To stress you out. We
Stop
can
it.
talk about this later. Eventually, we need to talk about that.
What about it?
Are we going to do it since we technically should? This was the replacement for our heart.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, my God.
I hate this. So I'm gonna put it in collab and be like, hi. Are we giving anything permission?
2, 3.
Well, it's like, we got this freaking help.
Yeah. I want to shut up about it and speed it up.
Ooh, everybody can hear me. In that case, listening to the soothing sounds of my voice while I put together the last of these graphics that I'm behind on. This is called Behind the Scenes. Okay. You ready to actually start the show now? All right, let's actually start the show now. Good morning from the National Weather Service office in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm meteorologist Donald Jones. I apologize for the delay, and a couple of y'all said you were listening to me in my pre-show, if you want to call it that. I was putting together the last of some new hazard products that we've just come out hot off the presses, literally 30 seconds ago. So we're going to talk about that. We have upgraded the winter storm watch that had been in effect is now become a warning for parts of the area, either an ice storm warning or a winter weather advisory. And that means that we're expecting ice accumulations to develop within the next 36 hours or so. And obviously, since now we're expecting the ice to begin forming by around sunset tomorrow evening, Saturday evening, that's we're getting within that time frame where we need to start upgrading those watches to warning. So we have all of that for you. Unfortunately, we are still expecting significant amount of ice accumulation, especially across central Louisiana and interior parts of southeast Texas. And we are still looking at the possibility of some ice accumulation as far south as the I-10 corridor. So here in Lake Charles, over towards Lafayette, not expecting to see as much, but some ice accumulation is certainly going to be possible tomorrow evening and tomorrow night. Now, what is much more likely and almost definite at this point is the extreme cold. We're expecting very, very cold conditions behind a cold front that's going to move through the area tonight into early tomorrow morning. And so we have a cold weather advisory and now an extreme cold watch. I know that's a lot of distinctive terms for just it's going to be cold, but they do have definitions. So we've got to, follow those. So we'll talk about exactly what that means and when and what those numbers are going to be here over the next few minutes. As always, this is a live interactive briefing. So if you have any questions as we go through our briefing, feel free to post them in our comment section and I'll be happy to answer them just as soon as we wrap up our briefing. Let's go ahead and jump into it though. Here you can see behind me, it's going to get cold front and then it's going to get cold and then it's going to get froze. In that order, in fact. So we are going to have this cold front roll through the area. The timing of it still looks the same. We're looking at late tomorrow night. Now, we are going to get some showers, maybe even some thunderstorms ahead of this front tomorrow We were actually talking about a low risk of severe weather, although it doesn't look like it's going to pan out to be much tomorrow ahead of this front. But it is going to rain tomorrow, so we are going to be looking at a good bit of showers and perhaps a few rumbles of thunder as we go through the day tomorrow. This is all going to be liquid rain, though. The freezing rain isn't going to come until tomorrow night. So that cold front rolls through, and we're going to continue this what we call stratiform rain. It's kind of mostly a light to moderate kind of just, it's not really drizzly, but it's just a steady rain. And it's going to be liquid, and that's what we're going to see through most of the day. So it's not going to be a very nice day to get out and do preparation. So you're going to prepare for the freezing temperatures and the potential freezing rain. Today is the day you want to do it. There are a few showers around out there today, but it's not going to be nearly as much as we're going to see tomorrow. So liquid rain during the day tomorrow, and then as we get onto sunset, we're going to see those temperatures cool off, and that's when we're going to see that transition into that freezing rain. There may be a little bit of sleet mixed in with it, but the majority of it is going to be freezing rain. The chances of snow are virtually non-existent at this point. So we're not expecting snow. This is mainly going to be a freezing rain event, although we could have some sleet pellets kind of mixed in. As I mentioned, we have some hazards that are just out. This is the ice storm warning. An ice storm warning is issued when we're expecting significant amounts of ice accumulation that could potentially cause hazards. This is going to be parts of central Louisiana and interior parts of southeast Texas north of the I-10 corridor. So officially, we're talking about in southeast Texas, Tyler, Jasper, and Newton counties, as well as Hardin County. And then in southwest Louisiana, we do have this ice storm warning for Vernon, Rapides, Avoyelles, Beauregard, Allen, and Evangeline parishes. So Lake Charles, you're not in this ice storm warning, but you are in a winter weather advisory, which I'll talk about in just a minute. The difference between the two is an ice storm warning. We're expecting more significant ice accumulation, a quarter inch up to a half inch. In fact, we're expecting between about a quarter and a half inch of ice accumulation in these areas. That's certainly going to be enough to cause power outages, road closures, and potential damage to, if you have trees falling on vehicles or stuff like that, it is going to have the potential to cause significant impacts across those areas. We do also have a winter weather advisory that covers the next tier of parishes and counties. So this is going to be for northern Jefferson and all of Orange counties in southeast Texas, as well as Calcasieu, Jeff Davis, Acadia, Lafayette, St. Landry, and upper St. Martin parishes. This is going to be for the same time period, essentially tomorrow evening through Sunday evening. And what we're expecting here is we are expecting some freezing rain, but we're not expecting the ice accumulations to be quite as high as they're going to be further to the north. So we are generally going to be looking at ice accumulations roughly around 1/10 of an inch, kind of along the I-10 corridor and a little bit further north across St. Landry Parish. Now, what does that mean as far as impacts? Yes, there is still the possibility we could see some road closures, especially those elevated bridges are going to be subject to closure if we get a significant amount of freezing rain. The other thing we're going to have to keep in mind is, as I said at the top, we're going to be looking at quite a bit of rain during the day tomorrow. So any of that liquid water that falls as those temperatures drop below freezing tomorrow evening, that will also have the potential to freeze on roadways and cause some black ice. So there is going to be the possibility of some road closures, and there is going to be the possibility of some sporadic power outages in this winter weather advisory area. It's not going to be as widespread. I'm expecting more impacts further to the north across central Louisiana, but there are still going to be the potential for some impacts, road closures and power outages as far south as the I-10 corridor. We do still have this cold weather advisory in effect. This essentially means where we're looking at wind chills in the mid-20s, or actually I think it's at 20 degrees that this is issued. So this is going to be for tomorrow night going into Sunday morning. For this cold weather advisory, we are advising you that it's going to be cold, hence the name, cold weather advisory. We also have this new product here. It's not a new product in terms of being around, but that we've just issued here. This is an extreme cold watch. This is when we're expecting temperatures in the single digits, and we are going to be looking at wind chills in the single digits. This is going to be Sunday night into Monday morning when we're going to be looking at this is probably going to be the coldest day of this event. Sunday night into Monday morning, we're going to have wind chills 5 to 10 degrees. Actual temperatures are going to range from about 14 to 22 degrees. So this is going to be extremely cold. This is probably going to be the coldest weather we've seen since last year's blizzard, and it may wind up being the coldest weather we see all winter season, Sunday night into Monday. So very, very cold conditions, dangerously cold conditions expected Sunday night into Monday. Let's take a look now at the latest forecast as far as the totals for the ice accumulation. We are looking at anywhere between a tenth to upwards of a half-inch of ice accumulation across parts of central Louisiana and interior parts of southeast Texas. That's the area that we just discussed that's in that ice storm warning. This is again going to begin Saturday evening, right around sunset, maybe an hour or two before sunset, as those temperatures begin to drop closer to freezing and get to freezing. We are still expecting, even though it's not explicitly listed on this map, we are expecting some ice accumulation along the I-10 corridor, hence why we've got the winter weather advisory in effect. But we're generally looking at between just a trace to upwards of a tenth of an inch. And a tenth of an inch is generally when we expect significant impacts to start to begin. So that's when we start to see power outages. That's when we start to see roads closed at about a tenth of an inch. So that is still in play for Lake Charles, Beaumont, even over towards Lafayette. But the higher overall ice accumulation totals are going to be further to the north across central Louisiana and interior southeast Texas. So Tyler, Jasper, Newton counties, and even the northern half of Hardin County as well. So taking a look at the timing, I've kind of hit it already a couple of times. We're looking at this beginning probably a couple of hours before sunset Saturday evening, and it's going to continue overnight into Saturday night and Sunday morning. Probably not getting out of here completely until sometime Saturday afternoon. Finally, all of that moisture that's going to be producing the freezing rain is going to move out of here, but it may not be till sometime between about 3 and 6 p.m. Sunday afternoon into Sunday evening. So that's a fairly long period of time for potential freezing rain. Now, it's not going to necessarily be freezing raining the entire time, although you're going to see much more of it across central Louisiana. Further south, it's going to be more hit and miss, kind of a shower variety, except everything is going to freeze. So it'll be kind of on and off through the evening and overnight hours and into Sunday morning. But that's kind of the time frame we're looking at. And it's important to keep in mind, we've been talking about that any ice that falls, any ice that accumulates either Saturday night or into during the day Sunday is going to remain in place Sunday night into Monday morning. So if roads close because of freezing rain or ice accumulation on sometime during the day on Sunday or Saturday night, as the case may be, and they remain closed into Sunday evening, they're going to continue to be frozen overnight because we're going to be well below freezing. Again, we talked about the coldest temperatures of this event are going to be Sunday night into Monday. So we're going to be remaining below freezing from probably early Sunday afternoon all the way through sometime around noontime on Monday. So kind of keep that in mind. If those roads do close, chances are they're going to remain closed into Monday as well. This is a look at the ice accumulation kind of over 6-hour periods, just kind of give you a better idea. The majority of the rainfall or the ice accumulation, let me get me out of the way here, is going to be essentially between about midnight Sunday morning and about noontime Sunday afternoon. So we got about that 12-hour period where the majority of this ice accumulation is actually going to be. You can see the higher totals there up across central Louisiana and interior parts of southeast Texas, and much lower accumulations as we get further closer to the coast. So we've got roughly about a 12-hour period there where we're going to be looking at the majority of the ice accumulation developing. But again, any ice that forms is going to remain in place Sunday night into Monday morning. Now let's take a look at the probabilities here. This is going to be the probabilities of different amounts of ice accumulation. So this is as of just about an hour or so ago. There's roughly about a 50 to 70% chance of seeing some amount of ice accumulation across central Louisiana and interior parts of southeast Texas. And we're pretty confident that we're going to see some amount of accumulation up that way during this period, Sunday morning into Sunday night. Further up, let me go back down here a little more on this one. Further down to the south along the I-10 corridor, so Beaumont, Lake Charles, Lafayette, you're looking at roughly about a 20 to 25% chance of seeing some amount of ice accumulation. That increases as you get into, say, northern Calcasieu, southern parts of Beauregard, southern parts of Allen and Evangeline, which are in that ice storm warning. So you can see there is a very sharp gradient in the probabilities here. The drop-off is pretty stark from roughly along and south of the Highway 190 corridor. And that makes forecasting very difficult because obviously we're not good enough to say exactly where that line is going to be. So, a couple dozen miles one way or the other is going to make a huge difference to a lot of people. So keep in mind that there is still a fair degree of uncertainty here exactly where that freezing line is going to be. And that's going to play a large role in how much freezing rain actually occurs. That's why I'm giving you these probabilities here. So this is the probability of seeing at least 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation. You can see generally a 40 to 50% chance along and north of the Highway 190 corridor. Between Highway 190 and I-10, we're looking at roughly about a 10 to 20% chance of seeing at least 1/10 of an inch. And then along the immediate coastline, we're looking at between none and about a 10% chance of seeing at least 1/10 of an inch. This is the probability of seeing at least 1/4 inch of ice accumulation. You can see 20 to 40% chance along and north of the Highway 190 corridor, a 5 to 10% chance between Highway 190 and the I-10 corridor, and pretty negligible chance south of I-10 of seeing 1/4 inch or more of ice accumulation that far south. For the probability of seeing at least 1/2 inch, you can see the probabilities go way down. We're looking at generally only about a 5 to 20% chance across central Louisiana, and that's really about it. So the vast majority of the region is going to see 1/4 inch or less of ice accumulation. That's some good news. Of course, the higher accumulations are going to be central Louisiana. So this is a look at the chances of rainfall here as we go through the next couple of days. You can see very low rain chances today. We've got a couple of light showers out there this afternoon, but there's not really a whole lot out there. I'm going to get off the screen entirely for a second so you can see what cities we have here. But you can see very high precipitation chances as that cold front approaches and moves through early Saturday morning. You see by 6 a.m. we're looking at 60 to 70% chance of rain across most of southwest Louisiana. I'll show the Texas cities here in just a second. But you see those very high rain chances continuing through the day on Saturday and through the night, Saturday night into Sunday morning. And then the rain chances begin to come down by about noontime on Sunday. So from about after 3 p.m. Saturday here, we are going to be looking at that rain transitioning over to freezing rain. And so those 90s and 100% chances of rain are then going to be frozen from there on. This is a look at our southeast Texas cities. You can see kind of the same thing, looking at the rain chances really ramping up tomorrow morning. And we're looking at 80 to close to 100% chance of rain pretty much the entire day Saturday, Saturday night, and into early Sunday morning, with most of it kind of tapering off by about noontime Sunday afternoon. Now, besides the potential for freezing rain, ice accumulations, road closures, power outages, and all of that jazz, we also have the fun of the extremely temperatures that are going to be bringing those risks. We are going to be looking at near record low temperatures with this event, especially as we go Sunday night into Monday morning, but again, Monday night into Tuesday morning. You can see the graphic here behind me. I'll make that full screen again for you. But these are going to be very close to our record low temperatures. You can see the records there on the left-hand side for each of our climate sites. Which one are we missing? We're missing Lafayette there. I don't know why Lafayette wasn't put on there. That's okay. But Lafayette is going to be pretty close as well, I would imagine. I'll have to go double check that. But these 4 locations are going to be at threat of having record low temperatures. Again, these are going to be the coldest temperatures we've seen, certainly since last year's blizzard, where some areas got into the single digits. Those wind chill values are going to be in the single digits, even though the temperatures are going to remain in the 20s. So this is a look at the kind of the hour-by-hour breakdown every 3 hours or so for the temperatures as we go through the next couple of days. You can see, obviously, we're going to be pretty warm today. So if you're making any outdoor preparations for this, today is going to be the day to do it, because by tomorrow morning, look at those temperatures dropping back into the 40s and then into the 30s by early afternoon. And on top of that, we're going to be dealing with a lot of rain around. So it's not going to be a nice time to be outside tomorrow. So anything you need to get done, you want to get it done today. Because if you got to do it tomorrow, you're going to be in a cold, drizzly, messy rain. And then that'll be transitioning over to the freezing rain as we fall below freezing. You can see Saturday night into Sunday, we get down at or below freezing with the low temperatures in the upper 20s. But look, Sunday night into Monday, we look at those temperatures dropping down into the teens across a large swath of the area, especially across central Louisiana. But pretty much the entire area is either going to be in the teens or the lower 20s. both late Sunday night into Monday morning, and then again Monday night into Tuesday morning. So you can see 2 nights of extremely cold temperatures. And we're still going to freeze Tuesday night into Wednesday and Wednesday night into Thursday. They're just not going to be quite as cold as they're going to be Sunday and Monday. And then, of course, add on top of that the 20-plus mile-per-hour wind gusts that we're expecting across the region. And then we get our wind chill values in the single digits, and in some cases, even the low single digits. You can see Marksville there down to as low as 2 degrees for those feels-like temperatures. Now, bear in mind, this has no effect on the pipes. The wind chill does not have any effect on the pipes, but the temperatures themselves are certainly going to be cold enough to cause pipes to burst. So this is definitely a wrap your pipes, run your water type of situation for at least the next several days, as we're going to be dealing with extremely cold temperatures. For Southeast Texas, same thing. We're looking at the hourly temperatures there. Looking at Sunday night into Monday, you can see teens again across pretty much all of Southeast Texas. With lows in the lower teens. You see Woodville down there down to 14. And then once we add in those winds, again, we're looking at winds 20 to 25 mile per hour gusts out of the north. And then those wind chill values down, again, back in the single digits. We're looking at 3 to 5 degrees up across parts of Jasper, Newton, and then down towards Beaumont, still single digits. We're looking at 8, 10 degrees for those feels-like temperatures Sunday night into Monday morning. Now, the feels-like temperatures aren't going to be quite as bad Monday night into Tuesday because those winds, you can see those winds are going to come down. We're looking at gusts closer to 10 miles an hour Monday night into Tuesday. So there is still going to be a bit of a wind chill, but it's not going to be quite as bad. The actual temperatures are going to be closer to the wind chills themselves. Now, talking about pipe busting weather, we're looking now at the time we're expecting to spend below freezing. And this is Saturday into Sunday morning. So this is going to be right behind the front. You can see even parts of central Louisiana and interior parts of Southeast Texas already looking at a long duration freeze tomorrow night into Sunday morning. So that is pipe busting weather up that way. I don't think we're going to spend enough time below freezing down along the I-10 corridor to become a pipe issue tomorrow night into Sunday. But definitely as we get into Sunday night and Monday, then we're going to become a big pipe busting type of situation. You can see 16 plus hours, 16 to 20. There are even some areas up towards Southeast Texas that may not get above freezing at all. So you've got that 24 consecutive hours below freezing. So that is certainly going to be an issue Sunday into Monday. And then again, Monday into Tuesday, we're looking at very long duration temperatures below freezing. And then Tuesday into Wednesday, you can see the same thing across central Louisiana. And even Wednesday into Thursday, we're still looking at several hours. This might not be long enough for pipe busting by that point, but at least 3 or 4 days consecutively of potentially pipe busting low temperatures. All right, so let's take a look now at what kind of impacts we can expect from this freezing rain. Of course, freezing rain is going to have the potential to accumulate on roadways. That's going to cause road closures. Bridges and overpasses, elevated roadways are going to potentially freeze first. They're elevated, they're exposed to that wind, that cooling air a lot more readily, and that air cools the asphalt a lot faster. So bridges and overpasses are always going to freeze first, followed by secondary roads, and then usually last is the major interstate highways. They're usually the slowest to freeze, but it is still not out of the realm of possibility. We could see some interstates closed if we see a significant icing event. Power outages happens 2 ways, essentially. We can get ice accumulation on the power lines themselves. Water is very heavy, and ice is just as heavy. So you're talking about thousands of pounds of water essentially pulling down on those power lines and power poles. So that all by itself can pull them down. The other thing is that same weight is also accumulating on tree branches. Tree branches can also potentially falling on top of power lines and taking them out that way. So yes, power outages are expected across parts of central Louisiana and interior parts of Southeast Texas. And I'm going to say power outages are possible along the I-10 corridor. So here in Lake Charles, Beaumont, Lafayette, you're not going to see as many power outages, but some sporadic power outages are certainly in play with this, especially if you get up towards that 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation. We are expecting anywhere that gets ice, a glaze of ice will develop on vehicles. So windshields, that'll make windshields kind of opaque. You won't be able to see out of them if you have a layer of ice on them. It'll also have the risk of potentially icing your door shut so you can't even get into your vehicle. So I've been strongly recommending, if you can shelter your vehicle, garage, carport, any kind of underpass, if there's a public garage that you can use to stick it there for a while, that wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing. And also, but if you have to leave your vehicle exposed, also try to keep it out away from trees, because again, those tree branches coming down, I've seen and messed up one in many vehicles over the years from those tree branches falling due to the ice. The other thing to kind of keep in mind regarding vehicles is if you do get that layer of ice, that glaze of ice on your windshield, it is not recommended that you try to melt it off with a bucket of hot water, because what will happen is that sudden change in temperature will cause your windshield to crack. So you're exchanging one problem for another. So either very cold water to try to melt it off, or just let it melt off naturally once those temperatures get above freezing, which unfortunately it doesn't look like there's going to be too much of that, a few hours each day, but really not until Wednesday are we going to get above freezing for a long duration period of time. All right. So what can you do to prepare? We've talked about this the last couple of days. You've still got today to kind of get out there and make preparations. Have an alternative source of heat in the event of power outages. So fireplaces, gas or wood is okay. Generators, but as we've been harping on the last couple of days, do not run generators inside. Generators should be kept at least 10 feet away from any kind of opening, windows, doors, etc., of your house, because of the risk of carbon monoxide. We've had people that have died because of carbon monoxide poisoning due to running generators inside. Same thing with gas grills. Do not run those inside. Kerosene lamps. Do not run those inside. Anything that's combustible that runs on gasoline is going to have the potential to produce significant amounts of carbon monoxide, and you do not want those in your house. Be prepared to be unable to travel for as long as 2 days. If those roads do freeze up, again, we're not going to be above freezing for very long. So there is going to be the risk that a lot of people will not be able to get out and about for a couple of days. So have snacks on hand, water on hand. There is the possibility that if we do see significant power outages, with everyone running their water pressure could potentially get very low. So having some bottled water on hand, not a bad idea. And then as far as food sources, you want something that doesn't necessarily take a lot of electricity or heating to prepare, because if your power's out, you're not running electric stoves, you're not running electric ovens, you're not running electric microwaves, unless you have a generator that has a whole lot of power. It takes a lot of electricity to run those. So foodstuffs that you don't necessarily have to prepare. So prepackaged foods, chips, snacks, and the like are good ideas in this case. Have non-electronic sources of entertainment for children in case you can't charge phones or iPads or video games, as the case may be. And then, as we kind of already hinted at, make sure to move vehicles and other potentially breakable objects out from underneath trees, because tree branches falling due to the weight is certainly an issue. So that's what we have here this morning from the National Weather Service. I meant to change this to Saturday, but we will have another update for you tomorrow morning on a briefing. We may do one this evening if conditions significantly change. I'm not going to promise that we're going to do it yet, but we're just going to kind of take a wait and see approach on that. And we may do another update this evening in the event that we have something else significant to talk about, which I don't anticipate. I don't expect this is going to change a whole lot, especially now that we already have the warnings up. But we'll just kind of play that by ear right now. At the latest, we'll do it at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. So let me go ahead now. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in our comment section here. I see several conversations going on at the moment. So let me back up a little bit here. And if you do have a question, I'll be happy to answer it here over the next few minutes. Heaven and Burke says, is there a possibility that the interior of Southeast Texas receives more than a 1/4 inch of ice? It's possible. In fact, let me make this full screen for you so you can get a better look at it here. You can see we've got a 1/4 inch up to a 1/2 inch, and in fact, parts of Vernon Parish up to 3/4 of an inch. That would be a lot of ice. That would result in some very significant impacts. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility, but it is very unlikely at this point. We're looking at probably a less than a 10% chance of that happening. Taking a look at the probabilities, I've got so this is the probability of at least a 1/2 inch of ice or more And you can see for Southeast Texas, those probabilities are very low. So we're looking actually closer to probably 5% or less. So not impossible, but it would be very unlikely at this point. Much more likely would be somewhere between 1/10 and 1/4 of an inch of ice. Urban Cast says, what is the timing of the freezing rain? We're going to be looking at the freezing rain beginning tomorrow evening. So let's see, this is probably going to be the best graphic to show you with regards to that. So we could be looking at it beginning as soon as around sunset tomorrow evening. You can see by 6 p.m. Parts of central Louisiana are already showing some accumulations expected, but really kind of taking off after midnight tomorrow night. You can see the majority of the icing occurs essentially from midnight Saturday night through about noontime Sunday. So that's kind of the time frame we're looking at. Leslie asks, so Saturday evening for ice is late like midnight or early like sunset? Well, it's going to depend on where you are. Like we just talked about, we could see, especially across central Louisiana, interior parts of southeast Texas, we could see some freezing rain beginning as early as sunset. The majority of the activity, though, is going to be after midnight. Robert asks, is the ice accumulation forecast more than yesterday's in Tyler County? It's about the same. There's been a little bit of a variation there, but it's very close. It's within a few hundredths of each other. So that hasn't, the forecast ice accumulation hasn't changed a whole lot. Lauren asks, do we think the schools will be closed in Lake Charles Monday? I can't say that with any degree of certainty. It's going to depend on exactly how much ice we see. Now, the good news is that if we see enough ice that we're going to result in road closures, we're going to know it by Sunday afternoon. So the school districts will be able to make their decisions regarding that well in advance, because we're going to stay below freezing, again, all Sunday night and into Monday morning. That's going to probably be our coldest night. So from probably about 3 or 4 o'clock Sunday through probably at least noon on Monday, any ice that's on the area roadways are most likely going to stay in place. Police, law enforcement, emergency managers, and then we'll be able to get out and investigate the roadways, see what kind of shape they're in, and then school officials will be able to make those decisions at that time. So probably look for that, if I had to guess, probably sometime Sunday afternoon. Pam says, I live in Oberlin. My brother is staying in a camper. Should we worry about the water hose on the ground? Yeah, generally, but we're going to be well below freezing for a long period of time. So what you want to do is unhook your water hose, empty it out. That'll keep it safe. That'll keep it from busting. If you just unhook your water hose, but the water is still inside, then that water is going to freeze. It's going to expand, and it's going to potentially bust your hose. So that goes for everyone, not just those in mobile homes or campers. Any kind of water hoses should be disconnected and drained out. That'll keep them safe. Monique says, what about the kids that has school in Calcasieu Parish? Well, the good news is, like I said before, this is happening on a weekend. So decisions won't have to be made about school closures until probably sometime Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. So the school officials will make those decisions at that time. We have been in contact with them for the last several days. We'll continue to be in contact with them through the weekend, but that is their decision to make. We have no say in that. We just tell them what the forecast is, what the conditions that are out there right now are, and then they make those decisions. Kenny says, another possible winter storm next weekend, going to make forecasters have undue stress. Well, we're used to it around here at this point. But yes, there are some computer models that are showing the possibility of some more winter weather next weekend. I'm not going to harp on that at this point. It's still, we're still talking about 7 days away, and we've got a much more immediate threat. And I wouldn't have a whole lot to say about that anyway, because at that time frame, there's really not a lot of confidence in anything. We don't know for sure whether it's going to happen. We have no confidence on how much, so if any. So yes, it is a possibility, but no, we're not going to talk about that too much right now. Leslie has to drive from Beaumont to Lake Charles around 5 to 7 p.m. Saturday. Road closures that South I-10 in potentially. Will I be okay that early? Thank you. We could potentially start seeing some icing at that point. I don't think that roads are necessarily going to be closed that early. Not to say it couldn't happen, but I'd say you're probably going to be okay. Penny Sue says, please protect pets. Yes, absolutely. From both the ice and the extreme cold. This is going to be dangerous cold for any outdoor pets. So give them some kind of shelter if you can, some kind of way to warm themselves up. Because, yeah, it is going to be extremely cold, and add the rain and ice on top of it, and it's just going to be plain old miserable out there. Steve says, would it be reasonable to think I could travel from Lafayette to Covington on Monday a.m., 6 to 7 a.m.? I really can't say at this point. But again, the ice is going to be, the freezing rain is going to be done with by Sunday afternoon. So if the roads are still open by Sunday afternoon, then you're going to be fine. So ask us Sunday afternoon, or check the roadways Sunday afternoon. Claudia Duncan says, do you see it shifting more north? Well, it's not, it's not a hurricane. It's not something that, if you're talking about the highest ice accumulation shifting north, well, they're already north. We're expecting the highest ice accumulations to be, North Louisiana, southern Arkansas, over towards Jackson, Mississippi. This is a large event. This event is not just affecting us. It's affecting most of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, I think southern parts of Tennessee. It is a very large ice storm going to be impacting pretty much the entire southeastern U.S. So we can't really look at it in terms of shifting one way or the other. Could ice accumulations be a little bit higher, closer to the coast? Yeah, absolutely. Changes are always possible in forecasts. That's why they're forecasts. That's why we don't set them in stone. Lisa says, so basically Moss Buff will just be very cold rain, no ice. No, that's not what I said. There is the possibility you could see some ice. I don't think it's going to be a huge amount of ice accumulation, but yes, you could see some ice accumulation in Moss Bluff. I'm not promising you will. You could. Emphasis on could. Could's doing the heavy lifting on there. Tamara says, what will temperatures be like in Alexandria Monday and Tuesday morning? I came on late and missed it. Well, let's look at temperatures Monday night and Tuesday morning. They are going to be cold. Let's see. Here's our temperatures. All right, let me make this full screen for you here. So this is a large scale, but this kind of gives you an idea for the Alexandria area. You can see it. It's about halfway down on the screen here. You can see Monday night into Tuesday morning, we'll be looking at temperatures in the teens, the mid-teens. So we're looking 13 to 15. And then once we add those wind chills, because we are going to be looking at still some wind chills, you can see those gusts. Not so much Monday night into Tuesday. There'll be lesser wind chills, but we're still looking at teens all the way through probably about 9, 10 a.m. Tuesday morning. The bigger wind chills are going to be Sunday night into Monday, where we'll be looking at those single digits. Jennifer Wright says, my students are tuning in from Sour Lake, Texas. Greetings from Lake Charles, Louisiana, here over there in Sour Lake, Texas. They would like to know who their families can prepare for this winter. I guess how their families can prepare for this winter weather. Well, best way to prepare, let me pull up my my preparedness graphic here. I had it on there just a second ago. I have one specifically dedicated to what you can do to prepare. So there you go. Essentially, you want to have an alternate source of heating in the event of power outages. So fireplace, generator. Short of that, if you don't want to go out and buy a lot, layered clothes. Layered clothes makes a big difference. So, t-shirt underneath, like I'm rocking right now. Then a sweater, maybe a third layer. Every layer you add is going to add more insulation. So even if you're in a potentially cold house because your power is out, You can stay plenty warm yourself with a combination of clothes and blankets. But yeah, if you have a fireplace, if you have firewood handy or a gas fireplace, that's helpful. You can run a space heater on a generator. Just make sure that that generator is outside. Never use a generator indoors. Be prepared to not be able to travel for a couple of days. So that means have a lot of snacks on hand. That's something you can go tell your parents. You have a good reason to buy snacks at this point, because you don't want something that you're necessarily going to have to heat up in case you don't have power, because electrical stoves and ovens, electrical microwaves, they're not going to work if the power's out. So you want easy to prepare meals and or snacks, non-electronic sources of entertainment. So, there is the possibility that if the power is out long enough, you could lose your cell phones, iPads, video games, whatever the case may be. And in that case, you want to have something to do, board games, balls, etc. Although it's going to be kind of cold to go outside and throw a ball around. But that is something you want to consider. And then moving vehicles and anything else that could potentially be broken, toys, tables, whatever the case may be, out from underneath trees, because tree branches will have the potential to fall due to the weight of the ice on those tree branches. So that's kind of what you can do to prepare in advance. That's what I've been telling people for the last couple of days. And then just be ready to hunker down if those roads do wind up getting closed. It's not promised that they are, but there is a possibility that that could happen. Medic McKnight says, protect the 4 Ps, the pipes, plants, pets, and parents. Jeff is asking about the length of hours in freezing temperatures areas south of I-10. So let's take a look at that real quick. So the coldest nights are going to be, let me make this full screen for you again. We are going to see a freeze across central Louisiana and say Tyler, Jasper, Newton counties late Saturday night into Sunday. But Sunday into Monday, and again, Monday into Tuesday are going to be our coldest nights, and that's when we're going to spend the most number of hours below freezing. South of I-10, even to the coast, we're going to be looking at 13 plus hours below freezing. So that's pipe busting weather area wide. Same thing as we go into Monday evening into Tuesday, we're looking still at 8+ hours below freezing. So that's certainly cold enough to bust pipes and to cause water hazards at that point. As we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, you can see the time below freezing shifts kind of further to the north, still across central Louisiana, still looking at 8+ hours below freezing, but we're not expecting a long duration below freezing across I-10 or south of I-10 Tuesday into Wednesday, although we will get to freezing, but it won't be for a particularly long duration. All right, let's see. Jennifer says, my students would also like to know how likely it is school will be closed on Monday. Well, again, like I said, it's going to depend entirely on how much ice falls and whether those roads close. Now, the ice is going to fall, the majority of it is going to be between midnight and noon on Sunday. So by Sunday afternoon, the precipitation will come to an end. If roads are frozen by that point, by say about 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon, they're going to remain frozen through probably at least noon on Monday. So I would say if that were the case, chances are high that that the school districts would cancel schools. If the roads were still traversable at that point, then chances are schools will be open again. So we'll probably know Sunday afternoon at the latest whether schools will be closed or not. Scaspard 66 asks, what is the difference between freezing rain and sleet? I've actually got a graphic about that, but I'm going to have to X out of here and actually go to it. I discussed this a couple of days ago, but I haven't actually gotten on it since then. Let me see if I can find it here. I know I had it in there. Did I delete it? No, here it is. Okay. Let's look at this graphic here. Science lesson real quick for those of you in school who are watching. There we go. Okay, so what's the difference between snow, sleet, and freezing rain? Okay, snow is, you know what a snowflake is, a little fluffy little flake that falls down. Freezing rain is a little ice pellet that it can actually kind of sting you a little bit. It's almost like baby hail. And then freezing rain is liquid rain that is actually super cooled. So it's liquid water, but it's actually below freezing. So it might be, it's still a liquid, but it might be 30 degrees of water instead of 33 degrees, which would keep it a liquid. Now, how that forms is, at the surface, we have temperature that's a certain temperature. So right now we're probably 60 degrees or thereabout. As you go higher up in the atmosphere, the temperatures cool, but they vary. The temperature varies up in the atmosphere the same way it does here on the ground. So sometimes you have a layer of air from the surface all the way through the cloud layer that's completely below freezing. That's how you get snow. In the case of sleet, you have a cold layer at the cloud level and a cold layer at the ground that's below freezing, but there's a shallow warm layer that's above freezing in between, somewhere a couple thousand feet in the atmosphere. So the precipitation starts out as snow, it falls through this warmer layer, it melts down into a raindrop, and then it refreezes into essentially a frozen little raindrop, a sleet pellet. That's why it looks like a pellet more so than a snowflake. With freezing rain, we have a larger warm layer in the middle of the atmosphere. So again, it starts as snow, then it falls through this deep warm layer, turns to liquid again, so now it's a liquid raindrop, and then there's a shallow cold layer that's maybe only a few hundred feet deep of temperatures that are below freezing right near the surface. So what happens is that rain drops below freezing, but before it can freeze into a sleet pellet, it ends up hitting the ground. The reason that we can get what's called supercooled rain droplets that are liquid even though they're below freezing, is because of the surface area of a raindrop. If you think about a raindrop, it's kind of tear-shaped. It's got that curvature. That actually causes the raindrop to not freeze at exactly 32 degrees. So you have a liquid water that is maybe 31 degrees. It's below freezing. Now, as that raindrop hits the ground, that circular teardrop shape is destroyed. So it splatters out everywhere. And when that circular shape, that teardrop shape is destroyed, then that water immediately freezes. And it freezes on whatever it touches, whether that's a tree branch, the ground, the road, the car, anything that's outside, even you. It may briefly freeze for just a moment on you before your body heat warms it up and it turns back into a liquid. But that's how freezing rain forms. So a drop hits the tree, it freezes immediately on the tree. Then another drop hits and another drop hits, and that accumulates over time. That gets bigger and bigger. And when we're talking about inches of ice, a tenth of an inch, a quarter of an inch, whatever the case is, that's that ice accumulating one on top of the other, drop on drop on drop on drop, until it gets thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker. And the thicker it gets, the heavier it gets, until eventually you're talking about thousands of pounds of weight on power lines, trees, even cars, even roofs. There have been cases where ice has caused roofs to collapse in on themselves. So that's kind of what we're looking at when we're talking about freezing rain. That's the difference between sleet and freezing rain. There's your physics/meteorology lesson for the day. I've got a lot of people posting on here saying that Calcasieu schools are closed Monday. I have not independently verified that, but you can check local news sources for that. Yeah, several people are talking about Calcasieu schools being closed, so I'm not sure. They may have done that right as I came on the air here, but yeah, check on that. I'm not going to confirm or deny it because I'm not sure, but that's what people are saying on here anyway. People saying schools are closed. I guess I'll believe it because there seems to be a lot of talk about it. See, Kimberly says, can you go over Evangeline Parish? I always see that we're in the middle of it, being extreme or mild. Yeah, you are going to be kind of on that threshold. There is a very tight gradient here between areas that are going to potentially see a lot and areas that are potentially not going to see a lot. And the best way I can show that to you is actually with the probabilities here. So you can see Evangeline Parish. That's right here, the one that says Ville Platte. And the probability of seeing any accumulation is roughly between about 40 and 50% right now. Now, as we go into the higher amounts, we're looking at roughly about a 20% chance of seeing at least a tenth of an inch, or I should say more than a tenth of an inch. And then we're looking at about a 10% chance of seeing more than a quarter of an inch. So what that kind of means is it's more likely than not that you're going to see some amount of freezing rain, but it's less likely that you're going to see enough freezing rain to cause significant impacts, widespread power outages, all kinds of road closures and stuff like that. Chrissy says, I've only been able to catch bits and pieces, and this is a stupid question. No, it's not. There are no stupid questions, just stupid people. No, I'm just kidding. What are we supposed to, well, are we supposed to run hot and cold water in our faucets or just cold water? That's a question for a plumber, but to my understanding, hot and cold water pipes are separate. So you do probably want to run a little bit of both, so open both just a little bit and let them drip. The reason we let the water drip is because moving water freezes at a lower temperature, just like we were talking about the supercooled droplets with the surface tension. Well, moving water also freezes at a much lower temperature than still water. That's why you can see rivers running still in an otherwise frozen environment. You still got a river running through, whereas something still like a lake or a pond will freeze over. And in fact, we'll probably see some of that when we're looking at these very, very cold temperatures. If you have a shallow pond or a shallow pool of water, don't be surprised if you do have a layer of ice on there. So in conclusion with this one, I would say probably drip both. You can ask a plumber to be sure on that, but to my understanding, you would want to drip both. Natalie says, so basically around Lafayette area, stay home on Monday and do a family movie and gumbo, right? With hot chocolate. That sounds like a wonderful plan to me. Emily says, thank you, Donald. I love that you're just straightforward and no hype. I don't believe in hype. Trust me, we've got enough stuff around here, enough events around here that I don't need to hype anything up for it to be what it is. Mary asks, is it possible the gas lines are? I'm going to say that maybe she meant, would the gas lines freeze? No, the gas lines will not freeze. Propane and natural gas freezes at a lower temperature than water does. So that's not going to be a concern. James says, I live in Alexandria. If we're more likely to see 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch of ice, why was an ice storm warning warranted instead of a winter weather advisory? The difference between the ice storm warning and the winter weather advisory is, as you say, it's the amount of ice we're expecting. Now, the official Weather Service criteria, at least right now, for an ice storm warning is 1/4 of an inch, which is certainly possible in these locations. I don't necessarily say it's likely, but it is a possibility. But it's our impression, and we discussed this amongst ourselves this morning, that 1/4 of an inch is actually very high. That's a pretty high threshold. We start seeing significant impacts, road closures, power outages, with ice accumulation well before we get to 1/4 of an inch. In fact, anything more than about 1/10 of an inch. So that's why we decided to go ahead with the ice storm warning, because we're pretty confident in seeing at least 1/10 of an inch across these areas and perhaps up to 1/4 of an inch. So that's why we went that ice storm warning. As opposed to the winter weather advisory, which we do have along the I-10 corridor, this is when we're expecting generally 1/10 of an inch or less. So there still could be impacts, but we do expect that there are going to be fewer impacts compared to areas further north. Let's see. Jones Perez Peanut says that Beauregard will also be closed Monday, and decision will be made about Tuesday, Monday afternoon. So again, I haven't independently verified that, but you can take that for what it is and check your local news sources. Sarah asked about comments on an employee traveling 190. Want to travel from Eunice to Kinder. I think my advice is to check road conditions, and I probably should have led with this, and I'm trying to make a graphic before we do another one of these, but Louisiana does have a real-time road condition website. I think it's LA 511 or 511LA.org, something to that effect. I'll have to look it up. but you can just Google Louisiana road conditions and get to it. Texas has something similar. TxDOT does have a web page where you can get real-time road closure information. So my recommendation is to check those sites before potentially traveling. There is the possibility some roads could be closed in that area. Mary says, is it possible gas lines will freeze in DeRidder? Again, gas freezes at temperatures well below what water freezes at. So no, there's not a risk of gas freezing. Tim says, don't eat all your snacks before the event. Good advice, and also hard advice, because they're there and they're just, especially when you're just waiting around, you get hungry. I've fallen victim to that before. The American Press. Oh, look, reliable news source has arrived. Calcasieu, Beauregard, Vernon schools are closed Monday, as is McNeese. All right, so that's there's a solid, reliable source of information for you if you didn't get the phone call. Josh says, hello from Fort Polk. Hi, Josh. All right, trying to find some. Natalie doesn't care if schools are closed. It's too cold to leave the house. She's lazy and don't care. I support your decision. Sandra says, I was wondering if I live 7 miles from Deweyville, Texas, and they have an ice warning. Should I assume we could also be getting what they get, but I am in Calcasieu? No, those are not necessarily directly comparable. The ice storm warning is where we're expecting more significant accumulations. Calcasieu is in the winter weather advisory, which I realize, it sounds the same, but there's a very stark difference in that we're expecting significantly less ice accumulation across Calcasieu than the areas that are in the ice storm warning. Betty says, in Nederland, Texas and Jefferson County, we're too far south to see much of anything other than freezing rain. Correct. That's going to be the entire area. We're not expecting, we may see a little bit of sleet mixed in, but the vast majority of this is going to be freezing rain. We're not expecting snow. Again, maybe a brief period of some mix in with some sleet, but the majority of it is going to be freezing rain everywhere, and that includes Nederland. Sandy says, don't forget to empty your windshield washer jug if you run just water, or fill it with the stuff that does not freeze. That's good advice, because that will potentially freeze and crack on you. So yes, very good advice. Candy says, there's so many different reports. It's confusing. Is Lake Charles or Vinton see freezing rain? The reason that there are so many reports and it's confusing is because we don't know with 100% certainty. That's why we give probabilities. In fact, I'm going to give you a probability right now, because I'm not going to give you a straight answer, because meteorologists don't give straight answers. We give probabilities. That way we're never wrong. So we're looking at, let's see, we're looking at Lake Charles and Vinton. You are looking at right now a 25% chance of seeing some amount of freezing rain. So if you look at it from that perspective, it is more likely than not that you will not see freezing rain. Or in other words, it's less likely that you will see freezing rain. Probability of seeing more than 1/10 of an inch, about 10%. So you've got about a 10% chance of seeing at least 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain, not precipitation. And then more than 1/4 of an inch, we're looking at only about a 2% chance. So that's why we give probabilities, because everything, if I came up here and said that you're definitely going to get freezing rain and then it doesn't happen, then you're going to come back and get mad at me and be like, no, you said it was going and it didn't. And I don't want to hear me. So that's why we do probabilities. John says, hi, National Weather Service. Today is my special birthday. I'm 37. Happy birthday, John. Glad we could spend a bit of it with you. Hopefully you don't get frozen for your birthday. Barbara says, how far south should we be worried? Right now, I'd say that to the I-10 corridor has a legitimate chance of seeing freezing rain. South of there, the overall risk and the overall chances of seeing freezing rain is much lower. Eric says, should we have to worry in Jeff Davis if it keeps trending south, or should we be good from any major concerns? Well, again, it's not really trending south or north. It's not a single entity. This is a series of showers that are moving across. It's not one thing like a hurricane. And then the forecast, the amounts haven't really changed very much from day to day. We've been expecting, for your area, Jeff Davis, we've been looking at generally 1/10 of an inch or less. And that's what we continue to expect. Amber says, I read St. Landry Parish might get around 1/4 inch of ice. Can I confirm? I can confirm that that's possible. I can't confirm that that's exactly what's going to happen. So again, I'm going to refer you back to my probability map here. So for St. Landry Parish, you're looking at about a 30 to 40% chance, depending on exactly where you are in St. Landry Parish, of seeing some amount of ice accumulation. You were asking about 1/4 inch of ice. The chance of you seeing 1/4 inch of ice in St. Landry is about 10% right now. So if you think about it that way, you have a 1 in 10 chance of seeing at least 1/4 inch of ice. So not very likely, but not impossible. There you go. Amberly's my back on the, this is the Texas website, drivetexas.org, for the real-time road conditions. Andre says, is St. Mary in the clear from freezing? No, everybody's going to freeze. Everybody's going to freeze Sunday night into Monday. Everybody's going to freeze Monday night into Tuesday. Let me pull up my graphic to verify my statement. Here are the temperatures for, this is pretty much all of southwest and south central Louisiana. But you can see we are going to be well below freezing Sunday night into Monday. In fact, we'll be in the teens in a lot of areas. And the same thing Monday night into Tuesday, we'll be looking at, again, mid-teens for most of the region. So everybody's going to freeze. That I can say with a high degree of certainty. All right. Jennifer asked, which part of Hardin County might be affected the most? I'd say just in general, and this is true of all areas, the further north you go, the more impacts you're going to see. So northern Hardin County is going to see more than southern. Jen just got a text that Rapides Parishes schools will be closed on Monday. So yeah, it's looking like more and more schools are now going to be have announced closures. Mickey says, people traveling from Lake Charles to Sulphur after a ball Saturday night, thoughts on crossing the bridge? There may be some ice accumulation beginning by that point. I think that it's likely that it's going to remain open at that point, but likely does not mean absolutely. So there is still a chance it could be closed that early. I don't think it's going to happen, but there is still a low chance. Sarah is in Warren and concerned about power outages. Are we still under a ½ inch? You could potentially see up to a ½ inch. The likelihood of you seeing closer to a 1/4 inch, though, between about 1/10 and a 1/4 of an inch, is much higher. Is that enough to cause power outages? Yes. So I would still be prepared for power outages in Warren. Kathy is in Leesville and has a metal roof. Should I worry about icy damming? You can definitely be worried about some ice buildup. Now, is a 1/4 inch of ice going to be enough to potentially cause a roof collapse? I'm not exactly sure. It depends on how your home is structured as well as your roof. So I can't offer you that directly, but yeah, ice on roofs is going to be a concern. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. It's not like you can go up there with a blow dryer and defrost your roof. It's way too big for that. Natalie says, can we use Tony's to salt our steps and prevent ice? Technically, yes, it does have salt in it. That would be a very expensive way to go about it, but if you were really feeling the flavor, you could do it that way. It would melt ice. Amber asked, do we know if Sunday is it expected to get above freezing during the day? Or is this a no or still unknown? If it gets above freezing during the day on Sunday, it's only going to be for a couple of hours during the afternoon. So yeah, depending on where you are, there is a possibility we could get above freezing into the mid 30s, but it won't be for very long, maybe just a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours or so. Timmy asks, how much chance of DeRidder losing power from this? I can't give you odds of losing power. It's just going to depend on exactly how much ice falls and where, and does it happen to fall on your power lines, or does it happen to fall on a weak tree branch that falls on a power line? So I can't give you a probability of losing power. What I can tell you is in that area, you're going to be looking at the potential for a tenth to a quarter of an inch of ice accumulation, and that will be enough to cause power outages. Whether you specifically lose power, I can't say though. Sabrina says, just seeing those wind chills is making me cold. I don't blame you. I'm the same way. Roxanne says, what's the weather going to be like in Hackberry other than being really cold? It's going to be really cold, and it's going to be really rainy tomorrow. You could see a little bit of freezing rain Sunday morning, but the majority of your weather is going to be rain, followed by very, very cold. Irene says, it seems like we will have more extremely cold weather than ice in Lake Charles. You're going to potentially have both. You're definitely going to have the extremely cold weather. But yes, there will be the risk of some ice in the Lake Charles area. Barbara asks if I'm ignoring her on purpose. Anything on ice Monday in Lumberton? No, Barbara, I'm not ignoring you on purpose. I would never do such a thing. I don't ignore anybody on purpose. You are special to me, as is everybody on this broadcast, in your own special way. As far as ice Monday in Lumberton, you are going to be looking at the risk of ice. And again, like we've been talking about, if you see freezing rain and ice accumulation by Sunday afternoon, then it's going to stick around until Monday, okay? Because we're barely going to get above freezing Sunday, and if we do at all, it's only going to be for a couple of hours. So if you get ice accumulation, say Sunday morning, chances are it's still going to be there on Monday. Robert says it's official. It's no longer Fort Johnson. It is now Fort Polk. I'm well aware of that. Unfortunately, the people who make our graphics are not on the ball about updating them very readily. And the fact that we went from Polk to Johnson to Polk, I call it Fort Identity Crisis. But yeah, you're just going to have to forgive us for that, because it may be some time before we get that set back correctly. That's not something I control. That's not something this local office controls. The people that put those cities in there, that's a national level team. And who knows when they're going to make that correction. I'm aware of it. I apologize. There's not a thing I can do about it. Jack says, how does the ground or air temperature affect ice accumulation? Well, obviously, you need air temperatures to be below freezing, and you need ground temperatures to be below freezing. If the freezing rain hits something that's above freezing, that warmer temperature is going to be transferred to the freezing rain. It's then going to melt off. So whatever it's hitting, as it's hitting it, it will drop that temperature to freezing. So you may have, let's say a tree branch, for example, that might be 35 degrees and has freezing rain hitting it. Each one hits it, it then melts off and then falls to the ground as liquid, which it then may freeze on the ground because maybe the ground's solid. But eventually that tree is going to lose that heating. It's going to drop as that heat is absorbed. And then once it gets to 32, you're going to start seeing that ice accumulate on the tree. So yes, whatever it's the freezing rain is hitting also has to be freezing in order for it to remain frozen. But since we're going to be below freezing already, air temperature wise, in a lot of areas going into Sunday morning, the environment around it, the trees, the ground, etc., is going to eventually fall to freezing and allow that to freeze, or the precipitation to freeze onto it. Natalie says to remember, Mardi Gras beads are not effective on your tires for weather. They won't help. No, they are not tire chains. That is not going to provide you a lot of traction. Irene says, so I wonder how Tuesday lows are. Will it be below freezing again? Yes, it will. I'm not sure if I have the hourly breakdown of that. Let me check. So yeah, you can see Tuesday on here. Let me make this full screen for you. You can see as we go into Tuesday, I don't have all the way to midnight, but you can see we're well below freezing already by 9 p.m. Tuesday across southwest Louisiana. It's going to be the same thing for southeast Texas. So yes, we will be looking at another freeze and probably another fairly long duration freeze Tuesday night into Wednesday. And we're going to freeze again Wednesday night into Thursday. Now, the difference is as we go into Wednesday, we are going to spend a more substantial amount of time above freezing, and same thing for Thursday. We are going to freeze at night, but we will get above freezing during the day. Keisha says, I'm not ready for this cold weather. Is it possibly true it will be another cold storm next weekend as well? Yes, there are some computer models that are showing that. I haven't really been talking about it at this point because we're focused on this one. This is the more immediate threat. But yes, there is another likely very cold air mass that's going to roll into place. There's another possibility of some winter weather next weekend as well. So we're going to continue to keep an eye on that. But yeah, that is going to be a possibility for next week as well. Kelsey, will Orange County possibly be in the ice storm warning at some point before Sunday? If the forecast supports it, then yes. But I don't expect there's going to be a significant enough shift to put Orange County in the ice storm warning at this point. We would have to expect more than 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation in Orange for us to do that. And at least from what we've seen so far, that's not going to be the case. Could it be the case? Yes. But at least from what we've seen so far, it's not going to be the case. Ashley says, would you travel to Houston Saturday and travel back on Sunday? Probably not, just because I wouldn't want to run the risk of being stuck there. Saturday you're going to be fine, other than you're going to be driving through the rain. But Sunday or Saturday night into Sunday, that's when we're going to start seeing that ice accumulation. If it was me, I wouldn't want to get stuck there, but that's your choice to make. Mim says, are bridges between Lafayette and Baton Rouge expected to have ice Monday evening? It's a possibility. I'm not going to say it's likely, but again, we're going to have the ice Sunday. Any ice that's on the ground Sunday afternoon is going to continue Sunday night into Monday and probably still be on the ground through at least noontime Monday. Now, if we get above freezing long enough, we'd have to spend probably 4 or 5 plus hours above freezing for that ice to begin to run off. If that were to happen, then we could potentially be ice free by then. But I can't say with certainty. I would say right now, you're probably going to be okay, but I will say that there's a possibility that those bridges could still be closed, assuming they closed to begin with. Mandy says, what about crossing the Morgan City Bridge on Monday morning? We're not expecting a lot in the way of ice accumulation down towards Morgan City, so I think you're likely to be okay. All right, we've been going for 1 hour and 12 minutes now, so we're going to wrap up for the time being. If you have a question that I missed for some reason, feel free to send us a direct message on Facebook. You can also email me. My email is on your screen in the bottom right-hand corner there. Donald.jones@noaa.gov, NOAA.gov. You can also give us a call here at our office, area code 337-477-5285, and speak to a forecaster directly that way. And again, you can also message us on Facebook, Instagram, or X. We have all of those social media accounts. So lots of ways to get in touch with us if you do still have a question. If there are some significant changes between now and this evening, we will do another update. Otherwise, we'll plan on doing another one of these 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. By that point, it should be raining and cold and less than pleasant, but we'll do it nonetheless. So in the meantime, everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. Again, preparations should be done today because, as I just said, tomorrow is going to be wet and cold and rainy and not a very good time to be outside, although it's not going to freeze until tomorrow evening, but it is going to be pretty miserable out there. So if you've got outdoor preparations to make today, do it today, because tomorrow you're going to be kicking yourself for not doing it today. Stay safe, stay dry, stay warm, stay wonderful, and we will talk to you again tomorrow morning.